I wanted to do a quick video today to talk about this latest ledger scare. And Charles Guillemet, or Guillemet, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, he's a French guy. So he's an exec at Ledger Wallet, I guess it's Guillemet. He announced today on Twitter that there was just this massive NPM attack that, here he kind of puts it here, I guess this is yesterday. There's a large-scale supply chain attack in progress. The NPM account of a reputable developer has been compromised. The affected packages have already been downloaded over 1 billion times, meaning the entire JavaScript ecosystem might be at risk. And he basically said, if you use a hardware wallet, like a Ledger, for example, pay attention to every single transaction before you signing, and you'll be safe, hopefully. If you don't use a hardware wallet, he just said refrain, period, from making any on-chain transactions for now. The latest update that came out today was that everything sort of seems okay. The update on the NPM attack is the attack fortunately failed with almost no victims. And began with a phishing email from a fake NPM support domain that stole credentials, And he basically goes on to say that hardware wallets are built to withstand these threats, and features like Clear Signing let you confirm exactly what's happening, and transaction checks flag suspicious activity before it's too late. I wanted to bring all this up, one as a sort of kind of like a PSA for crypto security, since this channel is all about stablecoin investing. We're really trying to make sure that everything that we do is as safe as possible. And I have this sort of really regimented and strict risk management practices that put different investments into different buckets and diversify it in such a way that each investment bucket should be fairly safe. And our whole goal here, my whole goal for StableAd is to protect my capital. So number one goal is to protect capital. Number two is then APY, right? As much APY as possible, but with protecting capital first and foremost. And so every single time you interact, or I interact with a smart contract, there's a risk that is happening here. And I just kind of wanted to bring it up real quickly because I've lost quite a bit of money in crypto, not just investing in volatile assets, but actually signing the wrong contract. And just because you have a hardware wallet doesn't mean that you're not susceptible to that risk. So let me just sort of go over here and explain to you what happened. Here's my other Twitter account, which is mostly about like art collecting and crypto investing. But I explained here in February 2024, last year, that I signed a bad contract and nearly all my ETH was gone in seconds. And I knew that something was wrong. Something felt weird, but I was just like trying to move quickly and I was being lazy. And even though I went and checked the link and the link looked fine, I signed the weird transaction anyway, and I immediately signed over all of, or at least a really good portion of my Ethereum at that time. And at that time, which was sort of deep in the bear market, it was worth like, I lost over 200,000, almost $250,000 worth of Ethereum at that time, and it just poofed, gone, completely gone in seconds, just lost it all. And what I did is basically what he's talking about here, where these guys they take your wallet and or they take your wallet ID and they sort of transpose it into the JavaScript. I guess they transpose their wallet ID, and so that when you're trying to do a transaction on a legitimate website, you're actually, and you don't look at what the transaction's saying. I actually agreed to basically send them my Ethereum. So they basically swapped my wallet address in the transaction for their wallet address. And when I pressed, even though I was using a hardware wallet, I went really, really quickly through it. I accepted the hardware wallet transaction, and I immediately sent them the money. And then immediately after that, it popped up again. I was like, oh, that's weird. I have to send another transaction. Oh, maybe the first one was an approval. So I did the transaction again, and I signed over more of my Ethereum to them. So I did 2 transactions, and then finally a third one popped up, and I was like, okay, this is not right. Something's wrong here. And I started to hyperventilate. I literally started to just panic. And I realized that I lost everything. I lost a lot of art. Like I lost, the famous artist Xcopy had some art from Xcopy. I lost some really expensive art blocks art and 6 figures worth of Ethereum in a split second. It was just gone. I wrote about it all here in this long thread that was a little bit more of like a sort of a healing thread because it was a month after, and just sort of talked about how I was healing through the whole process and how I was kind of getting back on my feet. But the point is, like, someone who's been in this space for a long time, that took precautions, that has a hardware wallet, and I still messed up because I was rushing through the thing and I was doing something quick. I love using what's called a hot wallet, which is a wallet that has no hardware wallet attached to it. The transactions run smoothly. It's so simple to use. It's so easy, but it's really dangerous. And the fact is, like, if I was doing transactions this week, when Charles had this announcement out there, I could have fell completely. I could have signed a bad transaction. It could have easily happened. As you're sort of rushing through things, and I'm trying to do a bunch of transactions. It's like, I'm trying to get these things done, and I'm rounding up the portfolio. I'm trying to finish up 5 or 6 moves, and I just want to be done for the day and move on and, like, go hang out with my kids. All of a sudden, you sign a transaction, and all your funds are gone, wiped out. And so you got to be really, really careful. And there's a few things that they mention in that thing. They mention what's clear signing. So they mention clear signing, and clear signing is this cool thing that that Ledger has been growing since, I guess this article came out here in July of 2024. So it came out last year, and essentially what they've done is they've made this complex string of data into something that's readable by a human. And it kind of like basically summarizes the transaction. It says you're sending this much in the transaction, you're sending it to this application. And you can read all about it here. You can just do a quick search on Ledger. What is Ledger Clear Signing? And you can see here. It essentially just makes it human readable. And then you can see, instead of this long transaction here, which is what you would have seen before, which just shows this hash figure, now all of a sudden it shows here. It reviews a message. You're using 1 inch. You're sending 1,000 wrapped Matic. And you're receiving $554.97 in USDT, and then here's the reviewer, and then you sign the message. And it's just much clearer, so you can see what you're actually doing, and it makes sure then once this thing is up that you can still see that you're reviewing everything. You're not rushing past stuff, so you can really see if this is really what you're trying to do. However, there are still some applications that you can use when you're playing in DeFi that require what's called blind signing. It's not clear signing. So you're still blind. You're still signing these long hash transactions, and everything looks like this, this long coded thing. And you don't really know what it is that you're signing. And so in those cases, you got to be really, really, really careful to make sure that you're signing the right thing. You have to make sure that that what you're signing is exactly what you're actually trying to do. Now, when you're using a good wallet, MetaMask is a decent one. Zorion is another really decent one. They'll have like a trust score. It'll tell you that this is a trusted transaction. This is, this passes their sort of verification test, and it'll tell you when it doesn't. And if things don't pass the verification test, and it's not trusted, you may want to consider, and it's blind signing, you may want to consider potentially not using that application if you don't feel comfortable. And those are just some of the things that kind of like I do and how I manage it. I just be like, maybe I don't do this, or maybe I really, really take the time to really, really review the transaction. Another thing that I use on every single transaction is this thing called Kerberus. I don't know how you pronounce it. Kerberus. And it's really, really cool. You add it to your desktop, and it's enterprise grade Web3 protection, and there's up to $30,000 in transaction coverage. And essentially, it's just like another thing that basically lets you know that it follows everything going on in Web3, everything that could go on in crypto. And so, for example, this latest hack, it would follow that. And hopefully, if you did the transaction within a certain period of time, obviously it may not be exactly up to date in real time, but if you do the transaction and the Kerberus is up to date with what's going on, the latest hack in the space, it will say, oh, this is malicious traffic, and it'll like something will pop up basically, and it'll show right here, like you see this malicious traffic thing. It'll pop up and it'll say this is malicious, or it'll pop up and say this is legitimate with like a check mark. And once it's legitimate, then it'll go and push it out to your hardware, or to your MetaMask wallet. So it'll go from like Kerberus thing. This thing will pop up, and it'll say cool, and then it'll go over to your hardware wallet, or to your wallet here, and it'll say great, and then the rest of the transaction will kind of like populate. So these are just a couple of the tools that I use that I think everybody should use on every single transaction. I use it myself, my business partners, and I use it for all of our transactions in our funds and things like that. And so these are just things that I use and ways that I think about it, because I've lost way too much money and I feel like I should know better. It's insanely embarrassing. Like, more than losing the money, I was just like, how could this happen to me? How could I, who have taken so much precaution, who have thought about this so deeply, how could I have lost this money? I'm just a lazy idiot, and I just feel so stupid losing that kind of money. And I only put into crypto what I can afford to lose, and so I'm okay. Like, it didn't ruin my life, but it was awful. Like, I still kind of wake up and sweat sometimes just thinking about it. And that happened, well over a year ago. So again, this is like just a kind of a security PSA. Like, as you're playing around with these things, these are some things I really think about. I really recommend to anybody that ever comes and asks me, should I have a hardware wallet? Yes, you should have a hardware wallet. It is really, really annoying. I hate using my hardware wallet. You should always upgrade it. So Ledger and all these will come with, you'll have to upgrade the firmware. Some of them are automatic. Ledger, you actually have to open up Ledger Live, and Ledger Live is an app, and you have to upgrade your firmware on the actual crypto wallet. And you always have to make sure it's upgraded. Always make sure your browsers are upgraded. Always make sure your computer software that you're using is upgraded. If you're using, Mac OS or Windows or whatever, always make sure those are upgraded. When you're playing around with crypto, everything's got to be the absolute latest in security. And then there's some of these other tools. Like, I always check. I'm always on Twitter checking to make sure there's no nothing crazy being reported. I'm always using Kerberus on every single transaction that I do. I use my hardware wallet, my Ledger wallet. I have like 7 or 8 of them, and I use for different portfolios. And then I'm always, even though it's so much easier to use a hot wallet and do transactions without a hardware wallet, I always use it. I always check and review these things, and I try, when it's not a clear signing, I make sure I either like avoid the transaction altogether, or I really make sure that what I'm signing is what I'm actually trying to do and accomplish. Hopefully this helps. This quick video about security. And stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll do another weekly, there's going to be a new video popping out tomorrow, and then another weekly update on Friday about some of the cool stuff I'm looking at in this space. Until then, be safe, protect your capital, and let's invest smartly. I'm the Stable Lad. I'm the Stable Lad. And if you like today's video, please hit that subscribe button. Every week I break down what's happening in the world of stablecoins and why it matters, clearly, calmly, and without the hype. This channel is for educational purposes. It is not meant to be financial advice, so always do your own research and manage your risk wisely.